I was small when money started sounding like thunder in our house. My name is DeLapp, and I learned to count wounds before I counted coins. My sister's voice cut through the evening like a knife. I needed that money. She said it loud, with anger hiding greed. My father barked back, saying the cash was meant for her loans. I stood in the doorway, empty-handed and shaking. The living room became a battlefield of receipts and old promises. My little brother, Kemi, watched quietly, his face too calm for his age. He didn't cry or shout, just whispered, "Can I fix the old bike shop?" That question stayed with me. My sister's nails dug into the couch like claws of ownership. She counted debts as if they were medals. No one noticed Kemi's hope burning at the edge of the chaos. I did. Silence was my weapon and patience my shield. That night, I made a promise to make sure Kemi's dream lived, even if it meant breaking a few family rules. I didn't know how deep the wound of betrayal would cut or how far the truth would hide, but I knew one thing. I would not stay silent anymore. The next morning, the house felt heavier. Kemi sat beside me on the porch, fixing a rusty chain. He talked about the bike shop like it was a kingdom he could build with oil and grit. I smiled, though my chest felt like stone. My sister's shouting still echoed down the hallway. Dad had gone to work early, avoiding another argument. The smell of fried plantain filled the air, but nobody was hungry. I slipped outside with an old receipt and a pencil. That's where I started writing the plan. It wasn't fancy, just patient, dangerous, and real. I listed everything Kemi would need: rent, repairs, one second-hand compressor. It looked impossible. But impossible things were my favorite kind. I worked odd jobs, washing cars, carrying crates, saving every coin. I lied once to cover how much I'd earned, and it hurt more than I thought. Still, each night, the idea grew brighter. I had envelopes under my mattress labeled hope, risk, and tools. Every time my sister shouted about her loans, I clenched my fists tighter. If money was war, I was learning to fight quietly. Weeks turned into months, and secrets filled our home like dust. Kemi's hope grew faster than the coins I saved. My sister, Lydia, had started visiting a man named Duro, rich, sharp, dangerous. She claimed he could clear her debts. Dad believed her. I didn't. Every time Duro came, his perfume smelled like trouble. He laughed too easily and watched people too hard. One night, I caught him staring at Kemi's notebook, the one with sketches of the shop. When he smiled, I saw greed behind his teeth. Later, Lydia cornered me. "Stay out of things you don't understand," she hissed. Her voice trembled, but not with fear, with guilt. I said nothing, but my silence made her flinch. That night, I moved all my envelopes into a tin box and buried it behind the shed. Kemi deserved safety, not curiosity. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Duro knew more than he should. When I looked out the window later, I saw him standing under the streetlight, smiling up at my window. Then he lifted his phone and took a picture. Morning came, but peace didn't. Dad left early. Lydia left later, and Kemi followed me to the market. We pretended to buy tools, but really we were studying prices. He wanted to name the shop Care Repairs. I laughed at the spelling, but he grinned, proud. "People will remember it," he said. I envied that kind of hope. We passed Duro's car on the way home. He waved at me through tinted glass. I waved back, pretending not to notice the envelope in his hand, my handwriting on it. Panic burned through me. I ran to the backyard and dug up the tin box. It was gone. I froze, my breath short. Someone had found it. Kemi saw my face and whispered, "What's wrong?" I couldn't tell him. That night, I confronted Lydia. Her eyes darted away. "Where's my money?" I asked. She smiled, fake and tired. "I needed that money." Her voice cracked on the word needed. Something inside me cracked too. Then the door slammed, and everything changed. She didn't come home for 2 days. Dad thought she was staying with friends. I knew better. When she finally returned, her eyes were red and her purse full. She handed Dad an envelope. "For the loan," she said sweetly. But Dad didn't see the fear behind her smile. That night, I heard her whispering on the phone. Tell Duro I'll get the rest soon, she said. My chest tightened. She'd sold the money I'd saved for his promises. I sat awake till morning, staring at the wall, replaying every moment. That's when I made the second plan, not to help, but to win. If Lydia thought she was clever, she hadn't met the new me yet. I started asking questions. Quietly, carefully. By the end of the week, I knew Duro's business. Loan sharking, fake deals, blackmail. He used people like Lydia to trap others. I knew how he got rich, and I knew exactly how to take it back. I just needed one mistake from him, and I was patient. Kemi kept asking why I looked so serious. I told him I was thinking about his future. He smiled, not knowing what that meant. I started working at Duro's warehouse under a fake name. It wasn't hard. They needed laborers, and I kept my head down. From there, I watched, learned, listened. Every night, I saw Lydia's name in Duro's ledger. She owed more than she'd ever told us. But something else caught my eye. Large withdrawals signed Delap. My name, my handwriting. Duro had forged me. I felt my blood turn cold. He wasn't just using Lydia. He was setting me up. I stole one page from the ledger and hid it in my shoe. It was proof, if I survived long enough to use it. That night, I followed Duro home. He lived like a king built from other people's fear. I watched him toss a key into his mailbox before heading inside. That key became my next move. The next morning, I accidentally stayed late at the warehouse. When the guards left, I unlocked the office using Duro's spare key. The air smelled of cigarettes and secrets. I found the safe, small, black, arrogant. The combination was hidden under a family photo frame. Inside were envelopes, mine among them. I took back what belonged to me, plus one USB drive. Then I locked everything exactly as I found it. By dawn, I was gone. I met Kemi by the river and handed him a small bag. Start small, I said. He looked confused but happy. I told him nothing else. That night, Lydia stormed into my room. You took his money, she screamed. My silence confirmed it. She slapped me. I didn't move. Her tears looked real this time. But I knew she'd already called Duro. As I packed my bag, I whispered, "This isn't revenge, it's correction." She didn't understand. She never would. I left before dawn, carrying the truth and the evidence. The news broke 2 days later. Businessman Duro under investigation for fraud. I read the headline with shaking hands. The USB drive had done its job. Inside it were transaction proofs, fake deals, and names, including Lydia's. Dad called me that night, his voice trembling. "What did you do, Delap?" "The right thing," I said, "but righteousness doesn't erase pain." Lydia's debtors came knocking. She lost her job, her friends, everything. Still, she refused to blame Duro. She blamed me. "Because of you, I lost everything," she screamed over the phone. Her words hit harder than her slap. I hung up. Then I went to see Kemi's new shop. It was small but alive, grease, laughter, hope. He looked at me with gratitude, not questions. That was enough. For a while, at least. Everything is clean, safe, consistent, and follows your rules. I stayed away from home for a while. Not because I wanted to, but because trouble moves fast when fear is chasing it. Duro's name was everywhere now. People whispered about how he fooled half the town with big promises and small lies. I kept my head low and my steps quiet. Meanwhile, Kemi's shop grew little by little. He repaired old bicycles with careful hands and a shy smile. Sometimes I watched from across the street, unseen. It gave me peace I didn't know I needed, but the peace didn't last long. One evening, I saw Lydia standing outside the shop. She looked tired, like life had used her and thrown her aside. I froze. Kemi talked to her softly, but she kept wiping her eyes. I stepped back into the shadows. I wasn't ready to face her yet, but as she walked away, I heard her whisper, "Tell Delap to come home. Please." It was the first time she asked instead of demanded. Still, I didn't return. Not yet. I needed to end everything properly. Duro's chains, Lydia's debts, and the danger still circling our family. I went to the police station the next morning with the ledger page in my pocket. When I stepped onto the steps, a hand grabbed my shoulder. It was one of Duro's men. He smiled without warmth and said, "Boss wants to see you." My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. I knew this moment would come, but not so soon. The man's grip was strong, but not painful, just controlling. He led me to a black car, waiting quietly by the curb. The windows were too dark, the engine too calm. Inside, Duro sat in the back seat, like a king who never pays for his crown. "Delap," he said with a slow smile. "You've been busy." I didn't answer. Silence made him uneasy before. Now it made him angry. He leaned forward. "You took something from my office." I met his eyes. "You took something from my life first." His smile fell away. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then he sighed. "You're smarter than your sister, but smart boys need guidance." He offered me a folded paper, a contract. If I worked for him, he'd forgive my sister's debt. If I refused, he didn't finish that part. He didn't need to. Danger was written in the silence. I took the paper, stared at it, then tore it into tiny pieces. His eyes widened, not with fear, but with anger like burning oil. "You'll regret that," he said softly. The car door opened behind me. I stepped out before they pushed me. I walked away with calm steps, but inside, I knew this was war now. The first attack came that night. Not on me, on Kemi's shop. Someone threw stones at the metal roof until dents covered it like scars. No one got hurt, but the message was clear. Duro wasn't playing anymore. I spent the night hiding behind the shop, watching shadows move. Kemi didn't know I was there. He closed late and walked home with tired steps. I followed from a distance, making sure he stayed safe. By morning, I made a new plan. If Duro wanted fear, I'd give him confusion instead. I went to the police with a ledger page. They listened, but one officer kept avoiding my eyes. His badge shined too brightly. I knew instantly. He worked for Duro. I walked out calmly, pretending not to notice. But inside, the truth hit hard. Duro had power in places I didn't expect. I needed stronger proof. Something so sharp it couldn't be buried. So I returned to the warehouse. Not to work, to watch, to wait, to catch him making one mistake. By afternoon, I saw something that changed everything. A briefcase, locked, heavy, guarded, and Duro carried it everywhere. Whatever was inside, that was the key to ending him. I just needed to get close enough to take it. Getting near the briefcase was impossible during the day. Duro kept it under his arm like a newborn child. But at night, he became sloppy. That was when he hosted meetings where whispers turned into dirty deals. From the warehouse window, I saw everything. Men entered with worry and left with fake hope. Money moved from pocket to pocket. Receipts didn't exist. But one moment changed everything. Duro unlocked the briefcase. I zoomed my phone camera and snapped pictures quickly. Inside were documents, tracking numbers, bank transfers, and a long list of names. The kind of evidence police couldn't ignore. But pictures weren't enough. I needed the real thing. When the meeting ended, he placed the briefcase on the desk while arguing with a caller. For 3 seconds, he turned away. 3 seconds. That was all I needed. I crept inside through the back and reached for the case. But a guard appeared in the doorway. His eyes widened. Mine did too. We stared at each other for one heartbeat. Then I grabbed a metal rod and dropped on the floor. The loud clang sent him running toward the sound. In that moment, I snatched the briefcase and slipped out the window. My hands shook as I ran. I didn't know it yet, but taking that briefcase would change everything. I didn't go home. Not to Kemi. Not to Dad. Not even near them. With the briefcase in my hands, I carried danger like fire. Anyone close to me could get burned. I hid in an old abandoned classroom behind my old school. The room smelled like dust and forgotten dreams. I sat on the cold floor and opened the briefcase. Pages spilled out like secrets desperate to escape. I read everything. Not once. Not twice. 3 times. Every document tied Duro to crimes deeper than I expected. Fake loan contracts, forged signatures, illegal interest rates, threats, and stolen identities. Lydia's name appeared 5 times, marked useful, The word stabbed my chest. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Slow, measured, searching. I held my breath. The door handle turned slightly, then stopped. The footsteps faded after a while, but my heart didn't slow. I knew Duro's men were looking for the briefcase, and they wouldn't stop. I spent the whole night organizing the documents in order. I separated the strongest pieces of evidence and wrapped them in plastic. Then I hid them in a hole behind the classroom wall. Whatever happened next, the truth would stay alive. As dawn arrived, I stepped outside and found Lydia waiting for me. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair messy, eyes swollen, clothes rumpled. But the worst part was her expression, fear mixed with guilt. "Delap?" she whispered. "They're looking for you everywhere." I didn't answer. She stepped closer. I didn't tell them anything. I swear, I believed her, for the first time in a long time. Then she broke down completely. I messed up. I trusted him. I thought he cared. She sank to the ground, covering her face. I crouched beside her, quietly, softly. "Lydia, Duro never cared about anyone." She nodded, crying harder. "I know now. He used me. He used all of us." I had never seen her this helpless before. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't angry. She was scared. I told her about the briefcase without showing it. She gasped when she heard what was inside. "Can this free me?" "Yes," I said, "but it can also destroy him." Her eyes lifted slowly. For the first time, she wasn't thinking of herself. She whispered, "Do it, Delap. End this. I'll help you." Before I could speak, she grabbed my arm. "Just promise me one thing." "What?" "Don't let Kemi get hurt." I nodded, because that was the promise I had made long before she asked. We moved like shadows for the next 2 days. Lydia gathered information from Duro's people, quietly, skillfully. She was good at hiding fear. Too good. Maybe she'd learned that from him. Meanwhile, I collected more photographic evidence. Every small detail mattered. The stolen money, the fake loans, the victims too scared to speak. Kemi kept calling me, but I didn't answer, not until it was safe. I couldn't risk him being dragged into the storm. By the third night, our plan was ready. We would give the evidence to a federal task force outside town, not the local police. They were clean, untouched by Duro's money. Everything was set, but just when Lydia and I left the classroom hideout, something went wrong. Very wrong. A flashlight beam appeared behind us. Then a harsh voice called, "Stop right there." We froze. 2 of Duro's guards stepped out, blocking the path. Their eyes locked on Lydia. "So this is where you've been hiding." One of them smirked. "Boss said to bring you home." My hands clenched. They reached for her. I stepped in front of them. "Touch her," I said quietly, "and everything goes public tonight." They paused, just for a second, but that second saved us. Because Lydia grabbed my hand, and we ran. We ran through the narrow school corridor, our footsteps echoing like drums calling danger closer. The guard shouted behind us, but they weren't fast. They weren't desperate. We were. Lydia's breathing was shaky, but she didn't slow down. I pulled her into a storage room and locked the door quietly. We pressed our backs against the wall, listening to guards' footsteps thunder past. For a moment, we were safe. But only for a moment. "They won't stop," Lydia whispered. "I know," I said, "and we won't stop either." She nodded, wiping her tears. "I never thought I'd be scared like this," she said quietly. "You were never scared of anything," I replied. She gave a sad smile. "I should have been." We waited until the hallway fell silent. Then we slipped out through the back door and into the night. The air was cold, sharp, filling our lungs with courage we didn't know we had. We walked along the river path, keeping low. The task force office was still far away, too far to walk safely. But we had no choice. When we reached the old bridge, Lydia suddenly stopped. "Delap." I turned. She pointed at the darkness behind us. A figure was following. Steady, slow, purposeful. "We need to hide," I said, but the figure stepped into the light. It wasn't a guard. It was Kemi. Kemi? I whispered, shocked. He looked scared, confused, and hurt all at once. Where have you been? He asked, his voice small but shaking. I came to find you. Lydia stepped forward, but he moved back. You both disappeared, he said, and men came to the shop asking questions. My heart dropped. I thought hiding from him would keep him safe. But danger had found him anyway. I'm sorry, I said softly. You should have stayed home. He shook his head. I'm not a baby. If something is happening to our family, I want to help. Lydia's eyes filled with tears. Kemi, this isn't small trouble. This is dangerous trouble. He looked straight at me. Are we running from Duro? I didn't answer. My silence told him everything. A car engine roared in the distance. Headlights flashed across the riverbank. Kemi panicked. They're coming. I grabbed both their hands and pulled them toward the bush path. Branches scratched our arms, but we didn't stop. The car moved slowly along the road, sweeping the area with its lights. We hid behind a fallen tree, holding our breaths. Kemi squeezed my arm. Delap, what's the plan now? I looked at the dark road, at the briefcase strapped to my back, at my scared siblings. The plan, I whispered, is to finish this tonight. And for the first time, they both believed I could. We walked through a forest path for almost an hour. The night felt thicker the deeper we went. Kemi kept stumbling, but he didn't complain. Lydia held his hand tightly, like she was making up for years of mistakes. Finally, we made it to the old highway. Abandoned, cracked, silent. The task force building was only a few kilometers ahead. But as we stepped onto the road, a motorcycle engine screamed behind us. Bright lights flashed. A voice shouted, "Stop." It was one of Duro's most loyal men, Baco, the one with a scar across his face. He knew how to hunt. He wouldn't stop. I pushed Kemi and Lydia forward. Run! Baco sped toward us. I jumped to the side as the motorcycle skidded across the gravel. He swung a metal pipe at me, but I ducked. His second swing grazed my shoulder, sending a sharp pain through me. He shouted, "Give me the briefcase." I didn't answer. I grabbed a handful of sand and threw in his eyes. He roared, dropping the pipe. That was all the time I needed. I kicked the bike sideways, sending it crashing into the ditch. Baco rolled, cursing loudly. "Go!" I shouted to Lydia and Kemi. They ran ahead while I sprinted behind them. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. We didn't stop until the task force building came into view, tall, bright, guarded. Hope finally had a shape. The officers at the gate grabbed us instantly, not roughly, firmly. They saw the fear in our eyes, the dirt on our clothes, and the briefcase strapped to me. One officer whispered, "Bring them inside." Another blocked the gate behind us. For the first time all night, I felt air return to my lungs. Inside, the building was quiet and cold, lit by white lights. We sat in a small room while the chief investigator, a calm woman named Officer Tenney, walked in. Her eyes were sharp but kind. "What happened?" she asked. I placed the briefcase on the table. Her expression changed immediately. She opened it and began flipping through the documents. Her eyebrows rose higher with every page. "This," she whispered, "this is exactly what we needed." Lydia sat beside me silently, hands shaking. Kemi leaned against my shoulder, exhausted. Officer Tenney asked, "How did you get all this?" I told her everything, not with pride, with honesty. When I finished, she nodded slowly. "Delap, what you did was dangerous, but brave." She looked at her team. "Prepare for an immediate operation. We move tonight." My heart raced. It was happening. Duro's empire, built on lies, fear, and stolen money, was about to fall. Officer Tenney looked at me again. "You and your siblings stay here. You're safe now." But safety wasn't something I trusted yet. Not until Duro was in handcuffs. The task force left in minutes. Sirens off, lights dimmed, moving like shadows with purpose. We stayed in a small waiting room with sealed windows and one door that locked from the outside. I understood. They were protecting us. Kemi slept first, head on Lydia's lap. She stroked his hair gently, whispering apologies he couldn't hear. Then she looked at me, a long, quiet look filled with everything we hadn't said for years. "DeLapp," she whispered, "you saved us." I shook my head. I saved what was left. She cried silently, not the loud, angry tears I used to see. These were soft, regretful. Hours passed. Every sound outside made me jump. Finally, footsteps approached. Officer Tenney walked in, her jacket dusty and her face set. "It's done," she said. My chest tightened. "Duro, he resisted," she said calmly. "But we have him. And his men." Lydia covered her mouth. Kemi stirred awake. I felt something heavy lift off my back. The kind of weight you don't notice until it's gone. Officer Tenney placed a hand on my shoulder. "You three can go home now. You'll be under protection for a while, but the danger is over." For the first time in months, I allowed myself to breathe. Slowly, deeply, freely. But I didn't know the biggest twist was still waiting for us at home. It was almost sunrise when we arrived at our house. The sky glowed orange, soft and warm, but the world still felt cold. Dad stood outside the door, looking like he hadn't slept in days. When he saw us, his shoulders dropped with relief. "Kemi! Lydia!" he shouted, pulling them into a tight hug. Then his eyes landed on me. He walked forward slowly. "DeLapp?" His voice broke. "You came back." "I never left," I said quietly. "Not really." He hugged me, too, something he hadn't done in years. It felt strange, but safe. Inside, the house was messy, signs of panic everywhere. Dad sat us down. "I heard everything from the police," he said. "Everything you did." Lydia lowered her head. "I caused all this," she whispered. "No," Dad said firmly. "Duro caused it. You just got trapped." She cried again, but this time in his arms. The room felt like healing for the first time. Then Dad turned to me. "You used the money you saved to help Kemi?" I nodded. He looked at me for a long time, eyes soft. "You chose the right person to help," he said. "He's always looked up to you." Kemi smiled shyly. "I still do." For a moment, everything felt peaceful. But peace doesn't erase consequences. And Lydia's consequences were waiting at the door. That afternoon, the task force returned to speak with Lydia. She stiffened when she saw them. "I thought it was over," she whispered. Officer Tenney shook her head gently. "The danger is over, but your involvement isn't." Lydia looked terrified. "Am I going to jail?" "No," the officer said. "But you were part of the scheme. Even if you were manipulated, you'll need to testify. You'll need to face everything." Dad put his arm around her. "We'll face it together." She cried again, but this time she didn't hide. She stood tall. She agreed to testify. It was her way of undoing the damage she had helped create. When she signed the final paper, she whispered to me, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I didn't speak. I just nodded. That evening, neighbors began talking about Duro's arrest, about the evidence, about the mysterious boy who brought everything down. It wasn't long before they found out it was me. Some looked at me with respect, others with fear. I didn't care. I only cared about Kemi's shop. That night, we walked together to care repairs. The metal roof was dented from the attack, but the inside was untouched. Kemi touched the tools gently. "This is all because of you." "No," I said, smiling. "It's because of us." We worked together to repair the roof. The sound of metal hammering against metal felt like rebuilding our lives one strike at a time. Kemi's smile grew wider with every step. Lydia even held the ladder for me, laughing a little when I almost slipped. It felt like a normal family. Something we hadn't been in a long time. As the sun set, a few customers came by. Kemi fixed their bicycles quickly, confidently. Every time he finished, he looked at me proudly, like the shop was more than a business. It was a second chance. A reporter passed by and snapped a picture. I didn't pose. I didn't need to. The story was bigger than me. When night came, we locked up the shop. Kemi held the key with so much pride that it made my chest warm. "DeLapp," he said, "when I grow this business, I'll help other kids too. Like you helped me. That moment felt like winning. A clean, honest win. We walked home slowly, enjoying the quiet. No headlights chasing us. No shadows waiting to strike. No fear. Just hope. But when we reached the house, Dad called us into the living room. He had something in his hand. A small brown envelope. He handed it to me. "I think this belongs to you," he said. Inside was something I never expected. Money. Not coins. Not crumpled notes. But neat bundles. More than I had ever saved on my own. My eyes widened. "Dad, what is this?" He smiled gently. "This is the money Lydia paid back after working with the police. And a little extra from the government's compensation fund. They said you helped bring down a dangerous man." I stared at the envelope. It felt heavy, not just with cash, but with meaning, with justice, with closure. "You earned it," Dad said. "You did something people twice your age wouldn't dare to do." Lydia stepped forward. "I want you to use it for Kemi's shop. Expand it. Make it legal. Make it strong." Kemi practically bounced with excitement. "Can we buy a bigger compressor? And a signboard?" We laughed. For the first time in months, laughter didn't feel borrowed. It felt real. That night, we sat together planning the future. A real future. A family future. Everything felt right. Everything felt settled. But I knew something important. Winning wasn't the end. Changing was. And I had changed more than anyone could see. More than I could explain. I looked at Kemi, already dreaming aloud. I looked at Lydia, rebuilding her life step by step. I looked at Dad, finally proud, and I knew the last chapter of this story wasn't about revenge. It was about rebirth. 2 months later, Care Repairs wasn't just a shop. It was a landmark. Kids came after school to fix their bikes. Adults brought old machines. Everyone loved the place. And every time someone asked how such a young boy started it, Kemi pointed at me. He believed in me when nobody else did. I'd stand at the doorway, pretending not to blush. Lydia kept her promise. She testified. She faced her mistakes. And slowly, she rebuilt her dignity. People stopped whispering when she walked by. They started greeting her again. Dad became softer, kinder, like he finally understood how important listening was. As for me, I didn't want praise. I didn't want fame. I just wanted peace. One evening, I stood outside the shop alone. The sun painted the sky gold. The signboard glowed proudly. Care Repairs, built with courage. I closed my eyes and let the warm wind touch my face. So much had happened. So much had almost broken us. But we were still standing. I whispered to myself, "Some dreams are paid for twice. Once with money, once with courage." Then I smiled, because the story that started with shouting ended with hope. And for the first time in a long time, I felt exactly what I'd fought for, free.